J.K. Rowling's Wizarding World franchise, home to Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts, is not only one of the biggest film franchises of all time, but also one of the most lucrative and most successful literary franchises ever, and easily the biggest of our age. I grew up loving Rowling's world, devouring the early books and early movies. However, somewhere along the way, for one reason or another, I stopped reading after the first 3 and stopped watching after the first 4. In preparation for the new release of Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald, I took up the task of binging the entire 10-film saga and have pieced my thoughts together here, where I will rank all the Wizarding World movies from my least to most favourite, including Crimes of Grindelwald. While I will briefly discuss the new movie, there will be no spoilers. Let's get into it. Kicking us off at number 10, Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. Grindelwald is quite easily the most confusing and boring entry in the entire Wizarding World saga. It's a movie that definitely has its great moments, but ends up suffering under an enormous amount of stuff that tries to string itself together as a coherent movie, but ends up a complete mess. There are so many characters, plot threads, side stories, and things happening in different locations constantly that it's so easy to get lost, bewildered, and frustrated. When this movie has its good moments, it's very good, but when it has its bad ones, it's very bad. The movie doesn't suck, it's just very hard to get through and incredibly tough to follow. I don't hate it, but it's easily my least favourable entry in the saga. 9. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Order of the Phoenix feels like a middling effort to me. Yes, it's a good movie, but to me it just kind of felt like it had the tendency to drag on quite a bit. No, I wasn't bored in this, it was still quite captivating, but I feel like it's the equivalent of that enormous expository chapter right in the middle of a book that you have to get through before all the good stuff happens. This one works more so as a setup for the final conclusion of the saga, and I think if I saw this when it was first released, or I read the book when it was first released, I would have been quite annoyed having to wait a number of years to see what happened next. 8. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Much like Order of the Phoenix, this is a movie that just feels like another chapter whose entire purpose is to slowly build up the conclusion of the saga. Good thing about this one, however, is that it manages to move the story along quite well and finally open up a handful of new conflicts for the series. This one almost feels like the most young adult film of the series, with a very strong focus on teen angst and with various love stories at the core of its narrative. I didn't see this as a problem though, as it's a clear turning point for the series, showing some enormous character growth, something certainly needed for the final chapter. I thought that there were some really fantastic sequences in this one and really loved the almost spy espionage movie feel to it. It's tense, thrilling, and engaging, and most of all, leaves you hanging for what's next. 7. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I really don't understand the mixed reception that this one got when it was first released. I absolutely adore the 1920s New York setting of the movie. It makes it feel so magical before we even see any actual magic stuff. I also love all the creatures and the whole world inside Newt's suitcase. It's just a really fun, exciting adventure. Yes, this is a Harry Potter movie with no Harry Potter, but it's still a great adventure in the Wizarding World, and my favourite thing about it is how it feels so naturally Harry Potter without any of the characters that we know and love. The movie certainly proved that this franchise and literary universe still has legs outside of the Potter-centric saga, but then again, maybe that's just because I'm a more casual viewer. 6. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. This one is a really great movie. It's a smaller, more intimate chapter that works as more of a character piece than a blockbuster adventure. Thanks to focus on character, acting abilities are on full display from the entire cast for what feels like the first time in the entire series. Or maybe the cast had just matured as actors by this point. Regardless, this all adds up to be a very deep and emotional chapter with some of the best character moments and establishment of the entire saga. However, its intimacy at times is also its downfall, making it feel a little bit sluggish. And I also felt that with no Hogwarts in sight, it lacks a lot of the charm and magic of some of the other entries. 5. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I never enjoyed Goblet of Fire on first viewing, and this is probably the reason it took me 10 years to watch the remaining chapters in the franchise. I always put this down to my unfamiliarity with the source material though, as this was the first Potter book that I didn't read, and went into the cinema and didn't really know what was going on. However, revisiting the movie now, I've come to realize what a great and complex movie and story it is. Great suspense, incredible intensity, riveting, breathtaking sequences, and easily one of the best installments in the franchise. franchise. I'm glad I gave myself the distance to revisit this one with fresh eyes because I had an absolute blast. 4. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. With a new director and new cinematographer for the first time in the franchise, even as a kid, I remember noticing that something just felt a little bit off with Prisoner of Azkaban, realizing that the movie was stylistically, tonally, and visually different. I've always been a bit of a stickler for consistency, so some of the visual changes really annoyed me back then. The movie just kind of felt like a sore thumb to me. However, having finally seen all 8 installments of Harry Potter, it's interesting to see just how much this one influenced the direction of the franchise going forward, actually making the first 2 movies feel like the odd ones out. With Azkaban, director Alfonso Cuarón shaped the darker and more mature style and tone of the franchise going forward, making Christopher Columbus's first 2 feel like children's movies, which I guess they kinda were. I actually really admire Azkaban now and recognize it as an incredibly revolutionary film, one that not only shaped Potter's future, but shaped young literary cinema going forward. In Azkaban, characters are deeper, more layered, and go through enormous changes and evolutions. Even though this was Cuarón's only attempt at a Potter film, his artistic stamp left an indelible mark, and one I've come to greatly appreciate, even if I don't love the movie entirely. 3. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. The most interesting thing that I found about revisiting this one is how I actually enjoyed it quite a lot more than the first one. I guess maybe because of the attachment I've had to the first one since I was a kid, I just never really realized it. What I discovered is that Chamber of Secrets is not just a better movie and a better story, but it's deeper, more exciting, and somewhat a little more mature. Chamber of Secrets is that rare installment that just tops the first one in every way. More riveting action and adventure, more charming magic, and greater character moments. But what I love about this one so much is how it does it in such a subtle and gradual way, feeling like more of an extension of the first movie than an actual follow-up. As I said, looking back now, the first 2 films feel like such sore thumbs, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Coming in at number 2, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. I absolutely enjoyed experiencing this movie for the very first time and finally getting a closure to a saga that I'd begun yet never finished over 20 years ago. This is the perfect swan song for Harry Potter, and I really loved all the links and references to the earlier movies and stories, and the way that it managed to tie up a whole bunch of loose ends. In a way, it provided an enormous sense of nostalgic closure for me, having grown up with the early books and movies. I love the sequences revisiting the Chamber of Secrets, the rounding out of Snape's character, and the explosive, revelatory, and dramatic final meeting between Harry and Voldemort that I'd wanted to see for 20 years. I loved the gripping action sequences, which are honestly some of the best I have ever seen. Somehow I managed to avoid all the spoilers for this movie for 7 years and had an incredible time with it. It's arguably the best movie in the entire saga, but not my personal favourite. That one goes to my number 1 Wizarding World movie, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, or Sorcerer's Stone for my American viewers. This movie is completely bursting with wonder, awe, excitement, and nostalgia, and somehow I completely forgot how much I truly loved it before my latest rewatch. Though I love the darker, more mature, more dramatic angle of the later movies, one can't go past the incredible innocence and childlike wonder of this one. I was a kid when the first few books were originally released, and they filled my mind with so much wonder and sparked so much imagination inside myself at such a young age. I got to read Philosopher's Stone multiple times before there was ever even any talk of a movie, and when it did come out, I remember being completely blown away with how the movie looked and felt exactly how I imagined it all in my head. And that's certainly not something that you can say about all book-to-film adaptations. Actually, that's not something you can say about many of them. This is such a touching movie that I feel resonates with me on some primal level. Maybe it's nostalgia, or maybe it's because this story has been in my blood since I could read complex novels. I mean, I had read Harry Potter before I'd even discovered Star Wars. That's how far back I go with this. No matter how I feel about the other movies and stories, this one is Harry Potter to me. And at that, we come to the end of my ranking of the Wizarding World franchise. Do you agree with some of my list? Do you disagree with all of it? Fire away in the comments below and let me know your own personal thoughts and rankings. As always though, guys, keep it civil. If this is your first time viewing one of my videos, you like what you've seen, you'd like to see more like this in the future, then please don't forget to hit that big old subscribe button up on your screen right now, and also hit that like button down below if you're feeling extra generous. Also, don't forget to check out my many social media accounts, and please consider supporting me over on Patreon. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you have a wonderful day.